Aloha, I'm Malia Zimmerman, and this is News Behind the News. There's people from Hawaii who like to talk about aloha here, but there's people from Hawaii who take their aloha to other countries and share their knowledge and experience and their talents. And today I have three people who have done just that. I want to welcome them to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming. There's some familiar faces here. Anybody who's been to Queens probably knows the good doctor here and Senator Wakai, and also his daughter, and we want to welcome you to the show. I'd love for you to introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll get into why you're in the show, but and basically some of the really exciting stories you have to share with our viewers that all tie together. So would you like to introduce yourself first?
I'm Brad Wong. I'm a retired general surgeon. I retired about 4 years ago. Most of my practice was at Queens, and I've been part of the group that brought us all together, the Aloha Medical Mission, for 30 years. We started going on missions to the Philippines, doing surgery, and for the past 4 years now, I've been president of this organization.
Great. Okay, well, we'll definitely get more into that organization and the great work it does.
Hi, my name is Sierra Nakamura, and I'm a freshman at Iolani, and I started this project called Smiles Across Smiles.
And we're going to talk more about that and how that all ties together. And then Senator Wakai, you're a famous person from television in the old days, and now you're a senator.
Well, with the evolution of high-definition TV, the ugly guys had to go do something else, so I landed up in the world of politics. And I enjoy politics, but politics, we affect policy from the 30,000-foot level. I really enjoy nonprofit work. I have an organization called Reach Out Pacific that takes surplus medical and educational supplies to Micronesia, and it was really in that capacity that I had the great opportunity to interface with Aloha Medical Mission and Brad Wong to put some really neat projects together. So the nonprofit really is my passion in life.
So three wonderful nonprofit organizations all working together. And maybe you can start about what Aloha Medical Mission does for people who don't know. Most people do know in Hawaii, but for those viewers who might not be from here, maybe you could share a little bit about the mission.
Aloha Medical Mission is based here in Honolulu. It's a nonprofit. It started out with a group of doctors and nurses in 1983, mostly Filipinos, going to the Philippines to do free surgery on people that couldn't afford it, primarily kids with cleft lips. And over 30 years, that has changed into a 7-mission-a-year organization where we do general surgery, gynecologic surgery, plastic surgery on people's lips, dentistry, at one time ophthalmology, taking out cataracts. And instead of just the Philippines, we've expanded to other countries like Laos, Burma, Bangladesh, Nepal, the Micronesia, Vanuatu, have involved from 10 volunteers to over 4,000 volunteers over the past 30 years. So it's an organization that keeps growing and keeps moving to fill the need. And through that organization is how we met these two young folks here who got involved on a mission with me to Nepal.
And you were a doctor in Nepal before.
Well, I was a retired guy 4 years ago, and I was going to drink martinis and read books until I got a phone call saying, do I want to go to Nepal to work? And I said, I can't pass this up. So I spent 2 months working in a small hospital, being basically a general surgeon with 3 or 4 other strangers with whom I became close friends with, obviously, after 2 months of working with them. And I came home exhausted. They called me up again and said, do you want to come back in a year? And I said, I guess I do. And I went back for another 2 months of working in this hospital. So that was my introduction to Nepal. I got another phone call, and this is how this nonprofit concept works. People hearing about you. Some Nepali doctor heard that I went to Nepal. He happened to be from Nepal, a hospitalist here in Honolulu, doing his training, Bikash Gupta. And he said, I'd like to take a mission to my hometown. And would I lead it? So he and I put this mission together. We took 30 to 40 people to a small town, operated for 10 days, came back home. This is our 4th year that we did this. And in the process, brought in Glenn and Sierra into this mission that we just completed about a month ago.
Now, you're a journalist and a senator, but you're not a doctor.
I am not. I slept at a Holiday Inn. And when you have bad health care, you have no Obamacare, you have no care, you get Glen Wakai stitching your face together.
Oh,
it was
wow.
such a neat experience.
Wow. Well, tell us a little bit about how did you get involved in this, especially not being a doctor, because most people probably would be interested in volunteering or donating or helping the organization. And what made you get involved, and how did you even think about doing that?
Well, I really enjoy helping others, not just in a political capacity, but really when I looked at the Micronesian migration here, a lot of it is because of no health care and lack of economic opportunities there. So I started a nonprofit that would reconfigure or reallocate and distribute items from here to that part of the world. And it's really with that background that I was able to interface with Aloha Medical Mission. And it's such a fulfilling experience. And you're right, I don't have the medical background, but as a layperson who went there, I become one of the big advocates and ambassadors, so to speak, for Aloha Medical Mission, because even if you don't have the medical skill level, we all, no matter where we are in life, have the opportunity to contribute to other people's betterment and welfare. And that's what Aloha Medical Mission did, and really, really touched your soul and inspired you. It's not for everyone. It's not glamorous. We're not staying at the Four Seasons. These are not swag facilities that we're embarking on. It's very rustic. But for the right person with the right frame of mind, with the right heart, in the right place, it's a phenomenal experience.
Now, Glenn wasn't sewing bellies up now. He was washing instruments and cleaning gowns and autoclaving them. And
No, I got to
moving
stitch a
patients
guy's
on.
face after he got his tumor replaced or
But
taken out.
the lay people have a role to play. They're not doing the major surgery. We have doctors and nurses and intensive.
Right, sure, of course.
Operating room nurses and recovery room nurses, anesthesiologists.
Now, are you also training the people there as well, or
Yes.
is that part of it?
And part of this, we lose sight of the fact that we as volunteers from Hawaii go there. But what is really significant is that we had 40 Nepali volunteers, people that are taking time off from their lives to work with us. Students, we had 4 medical students, 3 or 4 surgeons from Nepal volunteering, medical officers who, a couple of them wanted to be surgeons who were working with us. So part of this procedure and this project is teaching the local folks things that we know and exchange. It's quite gratifying.
Well, okay, now I don't want to keep you quiet this whole time, so tell us a little bit about how did you ever, as an 8th grader, decide to open your own organization, and what did you do? What was your organization all about?
Well, first I went to a fundraiser of Aloha Medical Mission, and I really got inspired by a slideshow of theirs, and it had pictures of kids about my age, and I really wanted to help them out because I feel like I have so much and then they have so little, so I wanted to give them things.
Now, what did your organization do? It was because it's called Smiles Across the Miles, right? So what was that for?
So first I went to a dental convention, and I asked a bunch of vendors if they wanted to help me with my project. I asked big companies like Crest and Colgate and Procter & Gamble if they could donate toothbrushes for me, because I wanted to find something that was easy to take and something that's a necessity for them. So I thought of toothbrushes to take to Nepal. This one company called Patterson Dental, Mr. Holbrook was very nice. I asked him if he could help me, and he decided to give me everything.
Is he from Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He works for Patterson Dental, and he gave me 2,000 toothbrushes, toothpaste, and dental floss.
He made your job easy.
Yeah.
Well, you must have been very convincing.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
so then you took up the toothbrushes, right?
Yep, so Sierra and Dr. Wong and a number of us packed those 2,000 toothbrushes into 4 boxes, so we really squished them together, and took them on behalf of Sierra to Nepal. And on the tail end of our stay there, went to a school, to Valley School, K through 12 school in this place called Dangkuta, Nepal, and shared them with the students there. They had gathered, it was a holiday, but they had gathered their students on campus, and maybe out of the 800, 200 of them were there, and we distributed Sarah's toothbrushes to them. And the gleefulness on their faces, and we have video of them just going rah with their new toothbrush and toothpaste. And keep in mind that this is such a luxury. A toothbrush and a toothpaste combined cost about 45 cents US for them to purchase there. And when you're thinking that a Nepali in that town makes maybe $1.50 a day, 45 cents to purchase toothbrush and toothpaste is a real luxury, a luxury that Sarah was able to provide them.
Well, good. Well, congratulations on your project, and your school is Iolani, right? So they must be very proud of you, because I know a lot of schools here are very good about promoting community service, and that kind of initiative is wonderful to see. And just imagine what you can do from here. You already were able to get 2,000 toothbrushes and get them to Nepal and get them to distribute it. So that's a great feat, and that's great for Dr. Holbrook as well.
Thank you.
And yeah, so I wanted you to each think about what was it that made you decide to go and do this kind of work, because I know it takes a lot of effort to travel, and you're going to a foreign country and you don't know the language, and you're going into a situation you don't really know. And I know you didn't get to go on the trip yet, but you did get to get the initiative of, the inspiration, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Was there a certain person or a certain story or a certain reason that you chose to get involved? I didn't
Brad
know.
Wong?
Sure.
No, I mean, Brad Wong
he's
was
the one,
is
okay.
the inspiration for both Sierra
Okay,
for
okay.
those on this side of the TV, because of his good-heartedness. And as Brad was saying, it was a team. There were 30 of us from Hawaii. And yes, we took off time. We paid our own expenses. This was not some incentive tour that somebody says, oh, you want a trip to Nepal, and by the way, go do these things. These are people had to make some decisions, taking time out of their lives, using vacation, spending a sizable amount of money to go help people who otherwise would be unserved. So it's not a trip for everyone. Some people want to drink wine in France. We rather drink tea in Dangkuta. So, it was just a really neat experience, and for those who are enthralled by that kind of a trip, it was a really fantastic opportunity.
And what about you? Did you have a certain person, or I know you get all these secret phone calls, you won't tell us who they're from, that ask you for people to ask you to go, but is there a certain story or a certain person or an experience in your life that inspired you to want to travel and do this?
Yeah, I have to view my life in two segments. One is the young part, and one is the old part. And the young part is kind of like what Glenn and Sierra have gone through, just out of residency, starting my private practice. I'm 8 years now into private practice in Honolulu. I see these people getting off the plane on KITV, a newsreel, and I say, I want to do this. So I call Dr. C up, Raymond C., who's the founder. I want to go. He said, sure. So the next year, I'm participating on these missions. And for a young doctor just starting his practice, for me, this was an adventure. It was a way to see the world, see new places, and certainly have the challenge of operating on things that I would never see here. So it was a growth phase for me. It was exciting. Fast forward now 30 years, and as I've now moved from a participating doctor to a team leader, it's a different perspective I have. Now I am doing surgery, but I also see this project of bringing people like Glenn and Sarah as part of the mission. That yes, we're going to a country, we're helping people who have needs, surgical needs, fixing their teeth. We'll talk about the Artificial Hand Project, giving them artificial hands, taking out cancers and big uteruses and fixing lips and burns. Yes, we're affecting the patients, but we're also affecting the volunteers. And I see now as a person going through this transition that part of my job as a team leader is to do both, is to help the people that we operate on and bring medical care to, but also be a facilitator to these folks who are coming on a mission for various reasons. Everybody has their own motivation. but everybody grows from it and has their stories. I don't want to tell my story, because really it's their story that's most important, what they got out of it, what they expected, and really the growth, the personal growth that I'm sure both of these two, as lay people, not medical people now, have undergone. Because even the nurses and the physicians have their own growth, and that's what makes doing these missions so exciting. It's a big melting pot of everybody benefiting.
Right, because you're not just affecting yourself in your stories, but you're also helping, and not only are you helping the patients, but then you're also teaching. It's a big part of it is teaching the people there.
It's a complex brew. We're teaching the young surgeons and students in the country. We're teaching the students that come with us. Doctors and nurses are learning new things because they've seen diseases on these missions that they wouldn't see here. It's a fantastic, active, complex process that everybody benefits from.
And so much knowledge is gained, and then you get your supplies there as well, right? Is that part of what you did? Brought supplies?
Her toothbrushes. I partnered with Brad on other missions to get things to the Philippines, bulkier medical equipment and devices in the past. But I have no military background, but I would say my experience going with Brad and the Aloha Medical Mission was as close to a military team bonding experience as one can get. Because the collateral benefit, in addition to the obvious helping the people there, was that the 30 of us went there as strangers, many of us strangers, especially me as a first timer there, and came back with 30 new friends with very kindred spirits, and we still, through the magic of Facebook, still are able to keep in touch with each other and get together. And that was an added benefit that I never thought of when I was embarking on the trip.
Now, I want you to think about if there was any certain moment that you remember from this particular trip, but also wanted to know if you would share more about the Aloha Medical Mission in terms of some other countries that you might have gone to, and or that the mission goes to, and how that all works. And if people did want to get involved, I want to make sure we talk about that at the end of the show, because you were inspired by what you saw on television, and maybe somebody watching today will be inspired. So, was there a moment on the trip, or when you were working on your project, that you thought of that you'll remember that inspired you to keep working and doing this kind of thing?
Well, I'll always remember Dr. Wong's kindness. He really helped me to be more of a global citizen. I always wanted to do humanitarian things, but I didn't know I could do it at such a young age.
All those black and bruises have healed?
Yeah. It was so much fun, and just the smiles on the kids' faces that I saw when he took a picture of them holding the toothbrushes up, it just made me feel so good.
Now, what is it that you think you want to do? You got a long time to decide, but some young people are very certain they want to do this kind of work, or they want to do, social justice projects, or they want to become a doctor, or what is it that you think, based on your experience here, that you might want to do in the future? You can change your mind. I'm not going to hold you to it. Neither is he.
Well, I want to continue doing these kind of humanitarian things, go to different countries, experience new things, and just learn. I think that would be the best.
Yeah, well, it looks like you have the good network here already.
What I enjoy about this is that I remember when I was a kid, these kids now are so far ahead of us in awareness and knowledge and opportunity. When we were kids, in a way, we were not. It was pleasant to be naive. But I remember instances like this, a meeting with a teacher, or just a very small opportunity, which carried me through later on in life and made me make a decision. Sierra is way ahead of me, and way ahead of, I think, our older generation, because she has so many opportunities ahead of us. And this is one of the great things about Aloha Medical missions, is that she's gotten involved and has gotten such a fantastic start that a wider world has opened up to her because of this. And she chose it. We provided the opportunity. And I think this is what is so fascinating, is that she's going to take this global health project into a much bigger step than we did. We did little steps, but she has the opportunity to have a bigger effect and a wider effect than we did.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll have to check back in with you about 10 years from now. What did you have?
No, and there's so many little connections that have been made. Like even as a follow-up to that, there was a gentleman on our trip, Reed Sakamoto, who works at the Cancer Research Center, and we befriended him. And just last week, he took Sierra over to give her a tour and let her know what is going on at the Cancer Research Center, which has kind of sparks a lot of interest in her. That maybe that pathway for her is going to be through going to medical school and one day perhaps finding the cure to cancer. But really, life is always about connecting the dots, having doors opened to you, and having the courage enough to walk through that door, right? It's not just open the door and, okay, well, I'll go check the next door. But it's like people like Sarah who walk through and really blossom in that environment. And really, it's the Brad Wongs of the world who allow people to open doors and on the end result, really change lives that need some assistance. We live in such a prosperous community, and there's so many just beyond our shores that are struggling through all kinds of ailments.
I will tell you one story, Maria,
Yeah, please.
just because you wanted to hear this.
This is story time. Talk
So-
story.
I think one aspect that the doctors and nurses see is that we like to see what we do. Oftentimes, we operate on someone, we'll never see that person again. This last trip, however, a little boy, he's now 10 years old, walked in with his dad. They had to walk 2 days to get to see us.
Wow.
But our plastic surgeon, Dr. Pete Galpin from Maui, had operated on him 2 years ago. When that boy was operated on, he had suffered a burn 5 years before, and his right arm had been scarred against his body. So his arm was stuck against his chest, his forearm was stuck to his upper arm, and his hand was trapped like this. So he was immobilized. Can't live a life well like this. 2 years ago, our plastic surgeon did the procedure to open him up. And I have to admit, I was a big skeptic. From what I've seen and heard, it'd be very unlikely for this kid to get full motion. But the miracle of being a kid and having an operation was such that he walked into our area and visited each of the guys that had helped him. And he was doing this. He had regained complete motion of his arm. He had scars, discoloration, but you couldn't tell that he had had an injury, where he would have spent the rest of his life without this operation with a completely useless arm. And now he was a normal kid. And an operation which took 2 hours changed this little kid's life to make him allow him to be a productive citizen. And it's a story like this that perpetuates it. So it's just, he's one of many that, not just our mission in Nepal. And you asked about what other missions does the Aloha Medical Commission do? Well, every year we send 3 to 5 missions to the Philippines. You know about the typhoon that hit a couple of months ago while we were in Nepal. We don't send disaster relief missions, but in February we'll have 4 missions going to the Philippines doing elective cases like we do, taking care of the poor who are definitely affected by events like this, who set them back in their economic ladder. But we'll have missions to Bacolod, to Kabankalan, to Palawan, to Laguna by leaders here from Hawaii to do exactly what we did in Nepal, going to hospitals, taking care of the poor people, operating on them, providing artificial hands to people that have had amputations, providing dental work. So we'll probably in the next 2 months affect another 5,000 lives in the Philippines from
Now,
these missions.
Is there something that you expect to see when you go because people have been through a disaster? Are you preparing for certain things, or is
Well-
it just you see the same things all the time?
Yeah, we're not going there to take care of the disaster population, because that's not our expertise. And there are people that are much better at it. There are issues such as developing the infrastructure, building buildings and getting water and sanitation redeveloped. That is not our field. So we are pretty much continuing as we have been, operating on the poor, taking care of their surgical and medical dental problems, and helping them through. So we're not affecting the actual victims of the typhoon, but we're affecting the people whose lives have been affected all across the southern part of the Philippines by the
And then
typhoon.
I know that not every part of the country was affected, but do you have to do research to make sure where you're going wasn't affected, or how does that work? Because you're going into an area that was a disaster
Right.
area not so long ago and is still recovering.
That's right. Well, we're working with our contacts in the Philippines. I mean, the people that support us and work out which hospital we're going to are communicating with us that, yes, we can do it. I mean, clearly, if our hospital that we're going to work at has been demolished, we can't go,
Right.
right? And it wouldn't be wise for us to do a sophisticated mission and take all of our supplies if all we're doing is bandaging wounds, there is definitely a need, but for our focus and our purpose, that's not what we're going to do. So the places that all of our other mission leaders are going to, were not affected badly by the hurricane, and we're going to continue to do our planned elective missions.
So what other countries? You have the Philippines and Nepal, and do you go other places as well?
For the past 7 or 8 years, one of our mission leaders has been going to Burma. 6 or 7 years now, another one to Laos. There's been a 12-year presence now in Bangladesh, where one of our emergency room doctors and his wife have, through Aloha Medical Mission, supported a permanent clinic supported by a wealthy family in Bangladesh that provides ongoing, not just medical care, but social services as well. So Aloha Medical Mission is expanding. We now have missions to Honduras. We sent one to Cambodia last year. We're working on another one to Ecuador. So South America is opening up as well, Central America.
No, people want to see the website, I think. Maybe we could just show it
Right.
briefly before the show ends. This is the Aloha Medical Mission, and the website address, just so people can see it, is that alohamedicalmission.org?
Right, very simple. If you Google Aloha Medical Mission, you'll get to our website.
Great, okay.
Yeah, and I can't always take every volunteer, as you might expect, because we have a limited number of spots, but we certainly welcome any contributions which you can give to a mission, to a town that you're from or have a concern, or we certainly welcome a general donation to our organization, because we have administrative costs which we need to pay to keep our projects going, and that's a tremendous need that we depend on the community to fulfill.
And then doctors as well. You're looking for doctors and nurses that might want to come?
That's right, and you can always go through the website and get in touch with our mission leaders and myself.
Good. Well, I hope you get some volunteers from today. And I know you've inspired, a lot of people to help you, just these two right here.
Yeah.
And so thank you for all the good work that you've
Well,
done.
they have a great story, and I think as an example that they set, I hope it'll allow people who are outside of the community to think, I couldn't do that. That's not in my capability. But seeing what they've done to understand that it is very much in their capability to do what they did and to do whatever they feel they can do.
Good. And I hope that your classmates have been inspired, and maybe they'll get involved as well in the future.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well,
One step at a time.
one step at a time. Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
here.
And
Thank you.
good luck with all your projects, and thanks for all the good work you do to make the world a better place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been News Behind the News. Aloha.